I swear, the interstate at night has its own personality. Not a good one, either. I was driving solo, heading to Denver from Flagstaff. The plan was simple. Take a few days off, camp under the stars, and clear my head. But road trips never go as planned. Do they? It was around 1 a.m. when I passed the last gas station for miles. Just me, the empty highway, and my old Subaru humming along. I should have been tired, but the radio was on full blast, and the caffeine from my last pit stop had me wired. Then my high beams caught it, a figure on the side of the road. I slowed down, not to stop, but to get a better look. The guy was tall and thin, like a shadow stretched too far. He had no bags, no car, just a baseball cap and a tattered denim jacket. His head turned as I passed, and I swear he smiled. But not in a thanks for passing kind of way. It was wrong. Here's the kicker. 5 minutes later, I saw him again. Same guy, same denim jacket, same creepy smile. I hit the brakes hard enough to send my coffee cup flying. There was no way he could have beaten me here. I was going 75 and he didn't have a car. Maybe there were two of them? Twins? Or something. The more I thought about it, the worse it got. Because who just stands on the shoulder of a highway at 1 a.m. grinning like that? I decided not to dwell on it. Just a weird coincidence, right? Wrong. Another 15 minutes passed, and there he was again. This time, he wasn't standing still. He was walking. No, striding right down the middle of the road. I slammed on the brakes, swerving hard to avoid him. My tires screeched, and the Subaru skidded sideways before coming to a stop. Heart pounding, I glanced in my rearview mirror. Empty. There was no one behind me. Okay, I muttered, gripping the steering wheel. Just drive. Don't overthink it. You're tired. That's all. But I didn't feel tired. I felt watched. I tried to shake it off. Just keep driving, I told myself. Denver wasn't that far, maybe a few more hours. But my hands wouldn't stop sweating, and every shadow along the highway seemed to stretch too far, move too slow. I turned up the radio, some old rock station playing a song I barely recognized. It didn't help. My eyes kept darting to the mirrors. Every flicker of motion, just my imagination. Until it wasn't. There he was again. I caught him in the side mirror first, his silhouette illuminated by my taillights. He was running now, full tilt, and he wasn't slowing down. My stomach flipped as I jammed my foot on the gas, the Subaru's engine roaring as I tried to put as much distance between us as possible. No way someone on foot could keep up like that. I risked another glance in the mirror. He was gone. The tension in my chest eased. Just a little. Maybe I really was overtired, seeing things that weren't there. That's what I told myself as the yellow glow of a rest stop sign appeared in the distance. The relief hit me like a wave. A rest stop meant lights, maybe a few other cars. People. I pulled in fast, the gravel crunching under my tires as I parked right under one of the buzzing fluorescent lamps. The Subaru's engine clicked as it cooled, but I didn't get out immediately. I just sat there, gripping the wheel, eyes scanning the lot. It was deserted. There were two vending machines, one flickering like it was on its last legs. A row of bathroom doors stood off to the side, dark and uninviting. The place reeked of mildew and hot asphalt. I debated driving off, but then my stomach growled. I hadn't eaten since that gas station hours ago, and a bag of chips from the vending machine felt like a lifeline. I stepped out, the cool night air prickling my skin. The rest stop was unnervingly quiet, the kind of silence that made your ears ring. I reached the vending machine, slid in a crumpled dollar, and pressed the buttons for a bag of Cheetos. The machine groaned, but nothing dropped. Of course, I muttered, smacking the side of it. That's when I heard it. Footsteps. Not the steady rhythm of someone walking, but a soft, uneven shuffle, like bare feet dragging across the pavement. I froze, my hands still resting on the vending machine. Slowly, I turned. Nothing. The lot was empty. The bathroom doors were shut, and the highway beyond was dark and quiet. But the sound didn't stop. The shuffling grew louder, coming from somewhere behind me. My skin crawled as I spun around, my eyes darting between the shadows. That's when I saw it, just at the edge of the rest stop's light. Him. But he wasn't standing anymore. He was crawling, hands and feet flat against the ground, his back arched like a predator stalking its prey. His baseball cap had fallen off, revealing long, stringy hair that clung to his face. And he was grinning, that same horrible, too-wide grin. I didn't think. I ran. I bolted back to the Subaru, my keys already in my hand. Every instinct screamed at me not to look back, but I couldn't help it. He was still crawling. Fast. Too fast. His limbs moved in a jerky, unnatural rhythm, like something out of a nightmare. His grin never faltered. His eyes locked on me as if nothing else in the world mattered. I yanked open the driver's door, dove inside, and slammed it shut. My hands shook as I jammed the key into the ignition and turned it. The engine roared to life, but before I could shift into gear, something hit the car. Hard. The whole Subaru rocked, and I let out a strangled scream. He was on the hood now, his hands pressed against the glass, his face inches from mine. Up close, he looked even worse. His skin was pale, almost translucent, and his eyes were sunken pits that seemed to swallow the light. His grin stretched impossibly wide, revealing teeth that were jagged and uneven, like shards of broken glass. For a split second, we just stared at each other. Then he slammed his forehead against the windshield. Crack. The glass spiderwebbed, but didn't break. I didn't wait to see if it would hold. I threw the car into reverse, slamming on the gas. The Subaru jerked backward, and he tumbled off the hood with a sickening thud. But he wasn't down for long. By the time I shifted into drive and floored it, he was already back on his feet, sprinting after me. I didn't dare look in the rearview mirror. I just drove, the tires screeching as I tore out of the rest stop and back onto the highway. The adrenaline buzzed through me like a live wire, but the fear didn't fade. I kept expecting to see him again, running alongside the car or appearing in the beams of my headlights. For a while, I didn't see anything. The road stretched out endlessly, the darkness pressing in from all sides. But then, a sound. At first, I thought it was just the wind rushing past the car, but it grew louder, a rhythmic thumping like something heavy striking metal. My stomach dropped. It was coming from the roof. I barely had time to react before the roof caved slightly, a dent forming above my head. Whatever was up there was moving, crawling toward the windshield. No, 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 I whispered, my hands white-knuckling the steering wheel. The dent stopped just above the windshield, and then his face appeared, upside down. He hung there, his limbs splayed out like a spider, his face twisted into that same horrific grin. His mouth moved this time, forming words that I couldn't hear over the roar of the engine and the blood pounding in my ears. But I didn't need to hear him. I could read his lips. Let me in. For a moment I froze. The words didn't make sense, and yet they were as clear as if he'd whispered them right into my ear. Let me in. His face pressed against the windshield, his breath fogging up the glass. I could see every detail now. His cracked lips, the veins spidering under his pale skin, the way his teeth seemed to shift like they didn't belong in his mouth. I slammed the brakes. The Subaru screeched to a violent stop, throwing me forward into the seatbelt and sending him flying off the roof. I heard his body hit the pavement with a sickening thud, but I wasn't about to wait and see if he was down for good. I hit the gas again, the tires screeching as I sped away. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely keep the wheel straight. Every nerve in my body screamed at me to look in the rearview mirror, but I couldn't. I didn't want to see him standing there, or worse, chasing me, mile after mile blurred together. The highway was endless, a black ribbon stretching into oblivion. The night felt heavier now, the darkness pressing against the car like a living thing. Then I saw it, the gas station. It wasn't the same one I'd passed earlier. It couldn't have been. But there it was, lit up like a beacon in the night. A few cars were parked out front, and I could see someone inside, moving around behind the counter. Person. Relief washed over me as I pulled in, my tires crunching against the gravel. I parked right under the lights, threw the car into park, and bolted out of the driver's seat, heading straight for the building. The door chimed as I stumbled inside, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The clerk, a middle-aged guy with a scruffy beard and a trucker hat, looked up from his magazine. "You okay there, buddy?" he asked, his voice calm, almost bored. I opened my mouth to respond, but the words caught in my throat. How could I explain what had just happened? Instead, I just nodded. "Yeah, rough night." He raised an eyebrow but didn't press. I grabbed a bottle of water from the cooler, my hands still trembling as I twisted off the cap. The cold liquid burned my dry throat, but it grounded me just a little. The clerk's voice broke the silence. "You headed far?" "Denver," I said, my voice shaky. He nodded. "Not much out there this time of night. You sure you want to keep going?" I hesitated. Every instinct told me to stay, to wait until morning. But the thought of sitting here vulnerable didn't feel much better. "Yeah," I said finally. "Just needed a break." The clerk shrugged, handing me my change. "Suit yourself. Drive safe." I stepped back outside, the cool air hitting me like a slap. The Subaru sat under the lights, looking just as I'd left it. But something was wrong. The passenger side door was open. No, not just open, hanging off its hinges. I froze, the breath catching in my throat. The interior light flickered, casting long shadows across the parking lot. And then I heard it, a soft, wet sound, like breathing. It was coming from inside the car. I backed away, my heart hammering in my chest. I wanted to run, to scream, to do anything but stand there. But I couldn't move. My legs felt like lead. Then, slowly, something emerged from the car. It wasn't him. Not exactly. It had his face, but it wasn't human anymore. Its body twisted unnaturally, limbs too long and thin, moving in ways that made my stomach churn. Its grin was wider now, splitting its face almost in half. "Let me in," it said again, its voice rasping like wind through dead leaves. I didn't think. I ran. I didn't stop until the gas station was a speck in the distance, until the Subaru was nothing but a distant memory. I never saw it again. I don't know what that thing was or why it chose me, but every time I'm alone on a dark highway, I feel it. Watching, waiting, and every so often, when the road is empty and the night is quiet, I hear it. "Let me in."